Good afternoon. I hope you're all having a good day. How many people were over at Granby Theater? Great. Good information?
Great.
Okay, so we're off to a good start. My name is Rod Watson. I'm the chapter chair for Storey-Hampton Roads, and we hosted the event with the Google at Granby Theater, and this is the breakout session that we're hosting. Just a reminder, after this session, there is a larger panel, in a larger auditorium downstairs. So it doesn't matter if you're registered or not. There's plenty of room. It seats 900. If you haven't been into the Roper Theater, it's pretty nice. So I think the information they're going to cover on how to scale up your business, how to get money injections into your business, how to fund it, are going to be good for anybody who's in or thinking about being in business. So it's definitely worthwhile. Unfortunately, first Friday was rained out, so it'll end at that point. We are looking at doing another collaborative effort in September. So if you have ideas, now's a good time to throw them at us, because we're going to do a debrief of how this day and tomorrow, how it went, and start with the ideas for September. Okay. And Google is
debrief. This is great.
Google's going to be part of it. It's really nice to have all these organizations working together and not stepping on each other like we do all the time. We schedule events at the same time, we cover the same topics. It's good to have us in the same room week after week after week planning an event. It's a lot harder than it looks. With all that, I need to get my notes back. Quick thing about SCORE, our mission is to foster vibrant small business communities through mentoring and education. We're known as the been there, done that guys, but SCORE's getting younger and more diverse every day. We're a national asset, so if we don't have the expertise and experience you need, you can go to SCORE.org and find a mentor throughout our national database and conduct a session via email or conference call or video conference if they're available for that. And you may find that it's easier sometimes to go through with us as opposed to doing it on your own. So what I'd like to do is next is introduce you to our panel. Has each of you received our program for today? We have one. Okay. So what we basically are doing when we put that together was to give you a couple takeaway points from each speaker and give it to you in a good take-home bundle. Also, passed around were the SCORE events coming up for this quarter. I keep saying next quarter, but it's already April, time's flying. For this quarter, April, May, and I don't think we spill over into June. We do have some teed up for June. These events are not even on our calendar yet because we just confirmed some of these dates with some of these speakers yesterday. But it is the current schedule. It's a hot off the press schedule. Are you ready to roll on the camera? Is the camera rolling? Lights on. Is that recording? Okay, so what I'd like to do now is introduce our panel and our moderator. sales. She brings 28 years of executive level business development experience working for organizations in both Virginia and North Carolina. Clients seek her help to boost with client engagement, market and referral growth, and new program development. She's a graduate of Old Dominion University and Storey University. She is deeply rooted in the southeastern Virginia community with her husband, 3 daughters, and 3 rescue dogs. I thought that was for you. The rescue dog part. Kept that in. Elizabeth serves as strategist on 2 non-for-profit boards of directors, Women in Defense, Greater Hampton Roads, and LIFT program for the homeless. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Elizabeth Duncan-Hawker. For the guys, I just went alphabetical order of the last names, so it's no priority. Next is Mike Ives. Mike is the Vice President of Business Development for Hampton Roads Communication Technologies, with over 30 years of sales experience, including management, leadership, and training roles with AT&T, Verizon, and Ricoh. Mike brings an entrepreneurial spirit to build effective sales teams and changing the culture of sales organizations. As an impact selling and spin selling certified trainer, Mike delivers sales trainings to over 2,000 sales professionals through his career. Please join me in welcoming Mike Ives. I have personally seen Mike sell, not good, but to join the Knights of Columbus, and that's one hard thing to do is get people to give up their time and to join an organization, and he's very skilled at it. So believe it, if part of it, believe what you sell. Next is meet Martin Joseph. Martin has been in the IT industry for over 30 years and is the founder and CEO of 360 IT Partners. His company installs business computer networks and then becomes the IT department for their small and medium business clients. 360 IT Partners is ranked 185th in the world by Channel Partners 501, so a top managed IT service company. Martin is the chamber of the board for the Hampton Roads Chamber of Commerce and the past president of EO, which is Entrepreneurs Organization. Martin is a longtime resident of Virginia Beach. He's a graduate of Green Run High School and received a bachelor's degree in business and marketing from Norfolk State University. Please give a warm welcome to Martin. And our final panelist is Chad Stenzel. Chad's career spans more than 20 years in sales. His management and corporate training serves him well in his role as Sandler training owner. He's experienced the trials of training a sales force, the importance of implementing a selling system, and the pitfalls of presenting to unqualified prospects. Boy, don't we know that. Tough one. His accomplishments include turning retail-oriented companies into sales-minded forces and unintentional nonprofits into cash flow trunners. That's good stuff. That's the goal. Please welcome Chad Stenzel. And the moment you've been waiting for, so I can turn this over and shut up, I'd like to introduce you to our moderator, Doña Storey. Doña is an entrepreneur, an author, a speaker, former media commentator, and small business advocate, and currently president of consulting firm GOVtips, LLC. She was successful in the commercial sector for over 12 years before expanding into the federal marketplace with her company, Quality Technician Services, an award-winning company serving federal customers and publicly traded Fortune 100 firms in worldwide marketplace. Please welcome our moderator, Doña Storey.
Well, I will tell you, I have what is called a microphone voice and not my husband's Marine Corps voice. But they assure me that the acoustics in here will accommodate. I'm so excited. And by the way, I'm retired. And so I'm really living my passion. I am looking to spend my time doing what we're doing here today. Because I'm truly quite the flag waver. My dad was an immigrant, and he taught both of his daughters that this is the land of opportunity. Get out there, educate yourself, and work hard, and you can have it all. And I will tell you that's what happened to me. And I will forever be grateful for the opportunity. It is that driver that keeps me engaged, that allows me to have such a great time doing what we do here today. And that is to take the best of the best and to share this with you. I call it life's buffet. You get to have all of these wonderful things put out in front of you, and you get to pick and choose what's going to work for you. Now, we're not going to do what I call the military or defense style debrief, where different people get up and you do death by PowerPoint, and I really hope they're not selling that way. But we're going to do something that I used to do when I was a spokesperson for American Express, and I would go around the country and we did talk shows on stage instead of panels. And that's what we're going to do here today. We're going to engage, we're going to discuss with each other those things that have really worked. It's not the theory of, it's the reality that you will be facing. The reality, and I already engaged with these two ladies. I'm always interested in who's in the audience and what are they going through, and I already gave them a bunch of hot tips of people they should be seeing. I can't help myself. And I love it, Steve. I love it when I see familiar faces of organizations and people that I've known for many years. And this gentleman sitting back here is a wealth of information if you are in the neighborhood of looking for government business. So anyway, let's get started. You know who the panelists are, and I want us to know who we are sharing with. How many actual business owners are in the audience right now? Great. How many of you have been in business 5 years or more? That's excellent. That is excellent. Oftentimes, as we know, 5 years is a bit of a discriminator. It's not a cutoff. I always believe that you can be a true entrepreneur, do something different, and give that 5-year thing 2 years, you just take off. So, what we're going to do and what I want to do, I feel like I'm standing, I'm going to shift over here so that I can see you. I always improvise. That's what entrepreneurs do. I walked in. This was not the room that I saw. And, excuse me, but I can be a really pushy broad. I had an office in Manhattan. And, in Manhattan, we were known as those two sisters from Virginia. Nobody knew her name, and I didn't care. But, you have to sometimes go for it. Anyway, I want to know where you would have these folks just begin. Oftentimes people are, and you're not going to believe this, but I was always real shy and scared. I was scared that would almost cry when I had to get in front of the group and speak or present. So, this is like open. Whatever it is that you think at the moment, I know everybody had key points, but if you can think of something that you think is really hot, let's just get it out there. We're going to have an open forum toward the end of the program where we want you to ask us questions. Okay. So where does somebody begin? I'm going to start with guys first. The girls always, get there first. But, where does a person even begin? Let's say that, okay, they've been in business, but they want to do a better job selling. And sometimes, you know how it is. Selling is a dirty word. Nobody wants to admit that you sell. Well, how do you think you get the money? You got to, use a different word. But where do they start?
I'd say, entrepreneurship is a lonely space. It is extremely lonely being at the top. It's difficult, to know where to go to find the answer. So the biggest recommendation I would make right out of that would be find a peer group. Find somebody who you could be, feel like you're associated with them, as I'm here, other entrepreneurs in the room. It could be very industry specific, you know, to what you're doing, and industry specific peer groups are very easy to find. So, you know, finding others that are kind of sharing your situation and maybe have crossed the bridge that you may not have crossed before, this can be very comforting.
And that's kind of the fear factor.
What's on the other side, right? The fear factor. And back to the sales piece, you know, everybody has got to sell. You know, I don't care if you're a garbage man or whether you're a fireman or whether you're an entrepreneur. Everybody has got to sell. You know, you either have to sell an idea or you sell a product, or you know, you have to sell yourself as an individual. And so I don't care, you know, where you are in life, but you always have to sell.
You know, my original degree was in psychology, and when I look at where I went, people would say, oh my gosh, what did you do with the degree? One of the things that I learned was, you know, in psychology, so much of it is about the research, and for me, research was a big deal. I mean, does anybody here believe in research? I mean,
Oh, it's huge.
so
So,
what does it look into?
well, I would tag team your research back with also where do you even start?
Okay.
So if you're going to be credible in an industry and be that person, become that guy, you know when you talk to someone and then they say, oh, I got a guy that does that. Well, we all want to be that guy or that gal, right? So to do that, though, you have to be extremely credible, and which means you have to be on point of your game, and it depends on what type of people that whether you're getting mentors to help you, but if they don't feel like you're credible from the word going, and you're saying, I just started a business and this is what I'm rolling out, or I've been in business 2 years, and you don't have proof of concept, if they ask you key points, and you should know those by then, and you don't know that, then you've lost it with them. They're not going to be that person that's going to invite you to the next thing, or they give you that tip that you're going to need.
You know, it's really interesting. Would you say that, you know, branding is a big word that you hear all the time. Credibility could be part of your brand. It's really not a logo. Oh, I'm so glad you said that. I was hoping to get that brand thing.
I had a financial planner tell me that he brought his client to a banker, and the banker did not know certain words, and that the banker had been in the business for 5 years, and he just said, that was it, I'm not using that person again. So,
Chad, what do you think? I mean, what are some of the key starting points?
Sure. One thing, how many of you are in less than 2 years in your business? Okay, so for those of you, God bless you. I understand, but I'm just into my 4th year right now, and so leaving a corporate world where I thought, well, I've sold things, I've managed people, I've got this, right? And then so you jump off that diving board finally, and you get in, and you say, what the hell did I do? You know, I don't. And so sometimes you're going from the euphoria of this was the greatest decision ever to I'm a complete moron within the space of 60 minutes, right? So I get that. I understand how that works. And so my first piece of advice to any of you, especially you newer folks who are 24 months in, don't quit. Just mark that down and say, I will make this work. Because you're going to have doubts, you're going to have people who doubt you, right? You're going to have those moments, and more than anything else, just to draw that line in the sand and say, I will hold on, and I've had somebody come up to me shortly after I'd started and said, so, you know, have you worked out your exit strategy? I said, what do you mean? He said, you know, in case this doesn't work out, you know, what kind of exit plan do you have? And I said, so my exit plan is, if I don't make this work, I will die trying, right? That was my exit plan. I didn't give up, you know, I didn't get out of my corporate life to fail at this. And so that's just, it's sort of apart from sales, but I think it's an important thing for entrepreneurs to understand. It's just, you've got to commit. You're going to commit to make this work. And there's a lot of, as Martin said, there's so many groups you can get tied in with. There's so much information out there that can be helpful, but you've got to just make that decision that this is going to work for you. From the selling standpoint, you know, one of the things that I always like people to understand is that, kind of tying in, is that everybody sells. So if the selling piece freaks you out, we all do it, right? How many people here have either are married, have been on a date, or at some point would like to go on a date? Everybody, all right, good. So you sold, right? You sold to get to that point. And so everybody sells, and so we've got to get out of this mindset that, oh my gosh, you know, I love this product I've developed, or I love this service that I've got. Now I got to talk to somebody, ask them for money. we do it all the time. So start to sort of demystify that, I think, in your own eyes, is just to realize that everybody does it, and so we'll work on it, right? We'll work on how to get better at it, but I think the first thing is just the mental piece of it. We have to get over it, that, you know, that's a big deal, because it's really not. Once you realize everybody's, even if you're sitting in a cubicle working for a company, right? You're selling your boss on keeping you for another week, right? By what you're doing. So everybody's selling.
You know, Chad, interesting point that he made. I was asked one time to speak saying, what's the difference between entrepreneurs and the rest of the world, essentially? What makes you different? And there was no study out there. And what I came to from doing just informal research is entrepreneurs handle their or manage their fear a little differently. When I heard you say that, it made me think that oftentimes we manage our fear a little differently. So, you know, that was a great point. So, Mike, what do you think?
Well, you know, I'm going to piggyback on everything they said because it's all encompassing. So talking about branding and talking about we all sell, right? Well, you have a brand. You not just your product, but you personally have a brand. You have it with your family. You have it with your friends. You have it in your church. You have it in your business world. You're selling that. You're developing the brand every day in everything you do. So, you know, kind of be aware not only from a marketing standpoint what that brand is, you know, and to make it better, but also know you can hurt the brand, you know, in a minute of anger or frustration or lack of judgment, if you will. So always be aware of your brand. And that's, you know, that's what you're selling. That's the credibility that Elizabeth was talking about. You know, knowing who you are and what you can do, and then delivering that and earning that respect. And then the other, we're going to probably talk about this later, but one of the biggest things about selling for me is that idea of referrals. So when you're talking to a customer, and again, I'm going to talk about this later in more detail, but just be aware that...
Talk about it now. If you're thinking about it,
all right.
just let it out.
So,
You might forget.
how do you market? How do you prospect? Where do you find your prospects? I would say that the easiest, most effective, and cheapest prospecting tool you have is your customer referral. So I ask every customer 3 times for a referral. I ask them when they sign the paperwork and they make the decision to buy my product or service, because they made a decision to trust me and that my solution's meeting a need for them. They have somebody, they know somebody just like them that could use that service. I ask them when we deliver the product and service, because now we've done a great job of delivering this. We've kept our promises. We've backed up what we promised. Great time to ask them for a referral. Now, I ask them in a 3-month review, because now that they've used this product for 3 months, now they're even more sold on what we've sold them and what we promised. And I ask again, and I typically get 2 referrals out of those 3 requests. That's always the goal, is 2 out of 3. I'll take 2 out of 3 all day long. Would you take 1 out of 3? Raise your hand if you would.
Yeah.
So, do you ask for referrals? And if you don't, the question is, why not? So, that's kind of...
Mike, something that comes to my mind, and somebody else might want to answer this, but back in my day when I was actually, doing this, if I would ask for a referral, part B to that is to define who your ideal client is. Because they may refer somebody to me who isn't the picture of the person that should be hiring me. So,
And that's one of the points I wanted to make, is that when you're asking for, and I love your 3 ways to follow up, so I have a mental note of that, so that's awesome. But you have to make it clear to people of what exactly you're looking for. What is your ideal client? So, and anytime you ask someone and they say, oh, everyone or anyone, or I sell to anywhere, that's not specific enough. So like in my world, instead of just saying I'm a business consultant, well, I'm a business strategist, and then I had to get cleaner. I'm a business growth strategist. I work with businesses that are growing. So when people want to refer me, they know specifically how to narrow it down. Because I had a problem when I first came out of the chute And Martin was actually very kind to me when I first met him. That's the second point I want to make, is when you first meet people when you're doing your business, you need to make sure you're very kind to newbies, because the newbies then keep coming up, and then they remember you later, and you remember them, and then you can collaborate. So 2 points, so be super nice to people, but also make it crystal clear who you're looking for when you're going to refer to them. So, and then the third point I'd like to make too, which drives me crazy, is when I meet with clients or I meet with people that are networking, is they think everybody's a prospect. And it just blows my mind. It's like, everybody's not your client. Stop. It's gross, right? It feels gross when you're around those
That's
people.
a big thing for me, yes.
Well, you know this really strikes a chord with me, because, everybody goes through a different stage of growth in their business, right? And I remember, back in the humble days of just being poor and just like eating ramen and like, it was really bad. It wasn't great, but I was persevering and I never gave up. So, in the beginning, if you, had a computer need and you were breathing and had some money in your pocket, I could help you out, right? I was willing to take anything and anybody that walked in the door. And so, fortunately, over the last, 30 years, I've been able to kind of mature our offering and kind of grow to other levels of business. And so now we're very, very specific about what type of clients that we would choose to do business with, right? They have to be a certain size, right? They have to have certain needs. They have to understand that IT is not an expense. IT, can be an investment. And so if you're that type of customer that sees IT as an investment rather than an expense, then we might be able to have a conversation.
And as you grow, what a great way to network. We knew the very specific, there were 2 types of projects that we took on, and if it wasn't that, we just didn't take them. But what a great way to network and build your brand, to be able to take that smaller project that's not you, and call another small business coming up and say, hey, we're going to refer this to you because it's not in our lane. I mean, talk about building credibility and brand. People remember that, and as they're growing or if they can help you, it's just a great way to network where you're not just trying to pitch
And in
something.
fact, just before we started, Mike and I had the same conversation, right? And I said, hey, listen, if I have opportunities that may not be a fit for us, I'd love to follow you into the next year.
Absolutely.
So that's the way you work. And that just goes to say, I mean, we live in the biggest small towns in the world. This is one of the best business communities you could ever be involved with. Because you're only 1 or 2 degrees of separation from anybody. I look out in the room, I see John Woods. I used to do John Woods' IT work for his food distribution company. John is an incredible veteran businessman. And anybody who's going to score and going to talk to John, you guys are really lucky. So good for you.
I have one more thing on the referral piece before. There are different levels of referrals, right? And by the way, all of you, I ask my clients this all the time. People who are really invested in sales and learning sales, and the thing they usually score themselves the lowest on is asking for referrals, right? So all of you who said you're doing it, most of you are lying. But we don't do it enough, right? Even if we do it, we say, yeah, probably need to do that better. And so, just some real quick statistics. These are not, these are general, not industry specific. But cold calling, we close about 3% of cold calls, right? And cold call can be cold email, right? There's different types of cold calls. So about 3%. If you've got some sort of history with that person, maybe you've worked with a company in the past and got some sort of knowledge, goes up to about 18% closing rate. Our typical referral, somebody referred you to somebody, about 33, 40%. What I like to deal with is what we call warm referrals. And the difference is, a referral could be, Mike says, hey, here's somebody you ought to talk to. They need help with this. And so I call them, and I find out he just gave me somebody to cold call, really, right? And they're like, who gave you my name? And I say, Mike, I'm going to kill him the next time, right? So that's not the kind of referral we want, right? So a good warm introduction referral would be Mike to say, hey, Mike, is there anybody that you know that would be a good fit for me that I could maybe help with the same things that I helped you with?
Right.
And so Mike says, well, yeah, and sometimes you have to put, to your point, a frame around that, right? Because if I just say, who do you know, right? Nobody can think of anybody, right? I don't know anybody. I don't know. It's amazing. But if I say, Mike, who do you know that you golf with that might be a good fit for this? Or who do you know that you go to church with? Or who do you know that you serve them? If you can put a frame around that, all of a sudden now I can think of some people, right? I think of people I do these things with. So putting the framework on it, but then saying, would you mind introducing me? If you're comfortable introducing me, and we can do this, a number of ways. We can do it by phone, we can do it over email, or we could all go grab lunch or breakfast together sometime, or coffee, right? So you kind of determine that based on your setting. But I'm going to have Mike now introduce me in and say, hey, this is Chad. Chad's helped me with this, this, and this. Would you be interested in sitting down with both of us and just getting to know him a little bit? Your closing rate goes up to 80% on that type of a referral when they put you in the door. So not all referrals are created equal, so absolutely ask for it, but go for that warm introduction every time.
Chad,
Make
I
sure,
just- go ahead.
I'm sorry, I was gonna say, and make sure that when you're the person that he's bringing in, that you exemplify why he feels you're qualified to be brought in. Because there's nothing more embarrassing than when you refer somebody and then they either don't show up on time, they don't deliver the goods, they don't, because they've let you down. And then it's a whole process, because what they've done is they've injured your sphere of influence, your reputation.
Your brand.
Know who you hang out with.
I was shameless about chasing business, very polite but shameless. I would go for it. I loved email. I would always ask if they would do an email intro, because typically on their email, first of all, you've got their email, and secondly, you probably have all their contact information, which is in the signature of their email. So, but if people are willing to open that door, that to me is kind of the hand on the shoulder. And I laughingly say, I'm a good old-fashioned Asian. Asians are used to using door openers. You do that, let me introduce you. It was almost too bold to just go in and do that on your own, but when you have somebody else that walks you through that email door, that is, as I like to say, the hand on the shoulder. So ask people. All they can say is no, and that's that fear of rejection. And they might say, my firm won't let me do this. Okay, I get that, but you asked. It's better than torturing yourself saying, golly, I wonder if I should have asked. I mean, I can't handle that. Better than they just reject me and move on, right? So, I want to get back to the research thing, because I really think research is a real big deal. What kind of research do you all do when you're looking for your ideal client? Or, how do you describe, what are the elements in looking for an ideal client? The reason I say this, you guys have touched on it. I'm all about getting your win, I call it the win ratio up. I mean, in my company, we knew we did not go after something unless we had done the research and pre-qualified. We were 85% sure bringing it in. Otherwise, why bother? 85, that was my line in the sand. Talk a little bit about this ideal client, because somebody talked about it. We chase too much where they're not going to bring it in. They're not going to capture. So,
Well, a number of tools that we use, and one of them that I sort of start with personally is what I call a sales effectiveness survey, right? So you can create a survey for whatever your business is. And so as I meet somebody and we start sort of that initial conversation. So we've determined, hey, maybe it makes sense for us to talk about this. If we schedule a meeting, I will send them, and this is probably a good note to make if you're keeping notes. When you engage a prospect, give them homework, right? A lot of times I think we think as the person selling that, it's all about, I've got to do this for them, and I've got to put this proposal together. And no, you potentially have something that is probably going to change their lives or their business for the better. And so they owe you something, I believe. And so give them homework between each step in whatever your sales process looks like. But one of the things I'll do in terms of research is before our first meeting, once we've had a conversation, I will send this and say, hey, and I'll let them know before I hang up the phone, say, by the way, before we meet, I'm going to send you an email. It's going to have this survey. Just, if you don't mind, take 5 or 10 minutes to fill that out, scan it, and send it back to me. And all I'm simply going to ask them is a series of statements to say, how big of a deal is this to you? How much of a concern is this on a scale of 1 to 5? 5 is critical, we got to fix it. 1 is no problem at all. And so they go through this and they fill this out for me, and they send it back. And what they send me is the blueprint for how to sell them when we get together in the meeting, because now I'm going to know what are the critical issues that we can talk about, and we're not going to talk about anything that's a 1, 2, or probably a 3, right? I'm going to focus on 4s and 5s. And by the way, sort of the stand your ground part here, if they show up to my office or we show up at the meeting and they say, yeah, I didn't have a chance to do that, I put a copy in front of them and say, when you finish that, let's talk. Here you go. How much time do you need? And that's a non-negotiable, right? If they won't take the time to fill out that survey, it sort of give me that insight to who they are. Because there are all other people who have filled it out and looked at it, and I've said, to your point, Doña, I don't know that it makes sense for us to sit down, right? I don't see anything that probably I can help you with that's really, you're struggling with. Maybe at that point I can refer them because I've figured out maybe they need marketing assistance more than they need what I do, or maybe it's something else. But that's sort of my first research point.
It's so funny when you say that it made me think. I was the sort of person that I really like to be sold because I have great admiration for somebody that really knows how to sell me. So I like that. But I would tell them when they called for their appointment, everything they had to do to sell me. And if they didn't do it, I would never take an appointment. I wanted to be pre-sold so I could have my questions ready and all of that. So when I hear you say it, I'm going back and I'm having a moment of deja vu that I'm sitting at the desk. I would never give them an appointment unless they did that. And I thought, do they want the sale or not? So, and you're busy, right? I mean, especially the small business, you're running around like a chicken without your head, doing all the stuff. You don't need to be sold on something that you didn't want. So you need to do that. Martin, did you have something?
Yeah, I just want to kind of piggyback on the sales cycle. Chad did a great job framing that. I've had the real benefit of being on the sales side, professional selling for a long time. As of the last maybe 4 years, I've kind of taken off my salesman's hat, and now I'm being sold a lot, right? So that's kind of an interesting thing. But when you're doing professional sales, it's really important to remember you have to be able to understand who your potential prospect is. So when you sit down at the table with them, I would just really challenge you to have a bunch of questions, for that prospect, as opposed to just coming in and just trying to blurt out this fire hose of information, and the next thing you know, somebody's being glossed over. It's almost as if you're just speaking to someone. Find out what their needs are. Find out what their pain points are. Find out what their pain points are.
Write that down. Write that down.
Find out why they hit a pain point, they reached a threshold and a point of inflection where they're actually looking for a different solution. Try to figure out as best as you possibly can what caused their pain. How is it that you're able to, with your product or your service, able to close the gap on that pain and give them that assurance.
I call that fishing the bruise.
That is, I'm telling you, that was a big magic point. There's a lot of magic here, but that was, I just had to stop you, and that was it.
I'd like to just add 2 points to that. One, and that was, what is your pain point? How do you ask the question, right? So, and there's a plethora of ways to ask what's your pain point without saying what's your pain point. But one of the things that I've always done and I've always trained is, have a goal session, discussion with your client. What are your goals? What are your business goals? Where are you going? What do you see in the next 5 years, or the next year, or the next 2 years? However you want to frame that. There's, again, there's a lot of ways to do that. But then ask what's keeping you from getting there. What's the obstacle, the challenge? What's keeping you from getting there? Because the very next question is, if I can solve that for you, is there any reason we can't do business together? And that's a trial close, right? But if we're on the same page now, you've just given me a challenge or a problem or a pain point, and now I understand it, and if I can solve it, you've really closed the deal already. Now it's just a matter of putting the solution together and reiterating that when you close, that you're solving that problem that they already agreed that if you solve, they do business with you. So,
and Mike, I love that, because what you also find out sometimes is that you can't fix it for them, or you find that they're not the fit. So instead of you chasing for somebody that's telling you, I really need you, you find that you're thinking, no, you don't. I'm not the right person for you. First, you need to see a psychologist, or or you need to see a financial expert and get this in order. I mean, there's some things that happen sometimes, and we don't want them as clients. But I know early on in my business, I've struggled with that because I wanted to help too many people. So instead of really I love how you said you're qualified and down, because then they know they're going to need you. But it's more important you remember you don't need everybody. We get to choose who we're going to hire and who's going to hire us in the same way.
That's great. A couple things that came to mind and lessons learned from my own failures, right? So you don't have to do the same thing. But one thing is, just as Elizabeth just said, we prospect for choice, right? So if you're wondering, well, do I have to really make these calls? Do I have to go to these networking events? You do it for choice, right? Because if you don't do that, guess what? You'll take, as you say, whoever comes through the door, right? Because now it's like, oh, they're coming in. And so the second part to that is that a problem prospect will be a nightmare client. I promise you.
Amen.
Right? And so you'll all have to learn that lesson the hard way. I'm sorry, because it doesn't matter. You'll still do it once probably. But that problem prospect, once they come on board, and you're like, okay, well, I see all these issues, and they don't want to follow my system, and they don't want to, but you know what? They've got to check it, cleared, right? So we're going to take them, and 6 months later, you'll be saying, okay, how do I give you your money back? Because it will absolutely.
And then they blame you.
Right.
That if you haven't let them go.
And then they'll talk about you.
Right, and then your reputation. Remember how I said be careful who you hang out with? So it's not just your peers and it's your network, but it's also your clients, because you are judged by the people you hang out with and who you allow to service.
And I want to take your comment. We're going to open this up to forum, but just what they said was a big lesson that I learned. And one of the things I would say in our company, and my employees understood what I meant, we chased only good money. There was good money and bad money. And bad money was that bad vibe I pick up, and I would say, there's not enough money in the contract that you put in front of me. It takes a toll on you, your reputation, your employees. Move on. Martin, you had something to say?
Just
We're
something
going to
real
open
quick.
it up.
Something real quick. So there's like an advanced method of selling. I don't know if any of you ever read the book called The Wedge. It's the wedge selling technique. So, I might be talking to a prospect and say, hey, listen, I'm sure your current provider is, doing a backup of your system, but, are they doing a restore test like at least once a week or once a month? And it's starting to try to, I'm not sure, I'm not sure if they are. You're kind of planting that seed of doubt in your mind that, maybe their current IT provider maybe doesn't have everything that they should be getting, right? And so if you can kind of ask enough of those wedge questions, and I highly recommend reading that book, and you can kind of develop some wedge questions on your own that would fit your product or service, and it might just open up discussion. For example, I might come up to Elizabeth and say, hey, Elizabeth, are you guys using an IT company right now? She says, yeah, we are. Are you happy with them? You said, no, I think they're doing a pretty good job. Well, hey, when's the last time they've done like a quarterly review? And you're just kind of like.
I'm sure they're doing this for you too.
Right.
I'm like, oh.
Right now, we've got about 15 or 20 minutes that we want to focus on questions that you all would like to ask the panel. So instead of doing the cards and the whole thing, we're going to try to do this by raising your hand, and let me call on you, please. One question, and I think I speak to the panel, and say you can't, but I'm sure that after today's program is over, that they may have a minute or two to have you come down and take your card or answer a question. So, questions from the audience? Yes.
Hi, how long did it take each of your business to actually really take off? Where you saw a profit?
I'm in my third 3.5 years, and now I'm in the major growth mode. So one of my pieces of advice to you all is, because I came from corporate before that, I've seen so many of my clients, they leave their job or they leave their military before they have a safe ground financially. And then they go, I'm going to start a business. But they don't have that safety net of their finances to weather them through the storm for the first year or the first 18 months. People don't even know who you are or a brand for a year and a half. So the Red Hawk didn't just get built within a couple of months and stuff. So, make sure you're financially stable. And then, yeah, by year 2 or 3, you should be rolling it if you're out there and you're visible and you're very clear with what you sell, right? So,
I would say,
well, how about you guys? What does
define what takeoff means. Mike, did you have, or
No,
something?
I'll defer on this one.
So for me, it was almost a year. And there wasn't that there was no success, but it was more than 12 months in where I was like, wow, I gave up a corporate salary, and I paid all this money for a business to make cold calls, and it's not doing right. And so That's why I just started off today saying commit, right? So in month 14 for me, and nothing magical about it, but here's what I figured out. In month 14, I had more in revenue than I had the previous 13 months combined. And it just sort of blew out from there. But what it wasn't because all of a sudden, you know, some pixie dust fell on me in month 14. It was 13 months of doing the thing, right? Doing the behaviors, as we say in Sandler, where it was going to the events, it was being in front of people, right? Where somebody, you know, in month 3 or 4, I might have still had some good ideas, but you know, you meet Mark Joseph at an event, you're 3 months in the business, he sniffs that up pretty quick, you know, it's like, great to meet you, all right? And when you stay around, and now by month 12, 13, 14, right, all of a sudden, now they've seen you 3 or 4 times, and now, you know, some things, and so I think there's something to that, sticking to it. Obviously, you get better, right? By the way, nobody said this yet, but one of my biggest tips, I think, for any kind of sale is work on what I call your 30-second commercial. Work on it, work on it, work on it.
In front of a
work
mirror.
on it.
So
Absolutely.
that's one that I love. What goes into, I have a very specific formula, what goes into a 30-second commercial that you would tell me?
Well, for me,
What are the elements?
For me, it's just a very brief, you know, who I am, what do I do, that's almost insignificant, right? Because, and let me say this, let me back up. Whenever possible, I always ask for theirs first, right? I want them talking about themselves because I'm going to tailor my 30-second commercial to whatever they've just told me. But my 30-second is who I am, what we do, and then I lay out 2 or 3 what I call pain points, right? So we were talking about pain of the people I work with, right? So I might say something like this. For myself, with Sandler Training, I might say, hey, Chad Stenzel with Sandler Training. I work with entrepreneurs and business owners who are frustrated because their prospecting pipeline is almost bone dry, or they spend too much time doing free consulting for unqualified prospects. I don't suppose any of those things apply to you. And go from there, and then, you know, they say, well, yeah, which one, right? And I just kind of let the conversation go from there. But that's pretty much my whole 30-second pitch is just, here's what I do, right? I tailor it to them and ask them if any of those things hit home, and then we move on from that.
Yeah, and keep in mind, because of technology, I was saying earlier on some phone conversations with you guys, because of technology and everything moving so fast, 30 seconds, 15 seconds really is the new 30 seconds. And if you were to watch a TV commercial for 60 seconds, don't you think it's like a documentary? It feels like you know, like the Super Bowl, they have these long ones, you think, is this a program? I thought I was watching the Super Bowl. But it's because we are so used to fast. So you've got to get it out. And what's the purpose of the 30-second commercial?
Just so they can see if they're interested in you. I would really recommend, though, everybody get in front of a mirror doing it. Because you meet the people and you,
Well, and record yourself, right?
yeah,
Record
and
yourself with
see,
your phone.
because you can see the ones that turn into, when you ask them that, then they turn into a robot and they're repeating what they were supposed to say. And you're like, oh my gosh, so.
I just want to share a personal story. When I'm getting dressed in the morning, I'm in the shower, I'm shaving, I'm brushing my teeth, and getting dressed, I'm rehearsing my closing for that big deal that day. And my wife's in the other room listening to this and laughing. Because she knows exactly what I'm doing. But I practice it all the time. I'm in the car, I'm going through, I'm scripting what I'm saying, how I'm going to say it, the inflection, the point I'm trying to make, and I want to come off a certain way. And, you know, that's the only way I can do it. If I try and just ad-lib it, I'm going to walk out of the meeting and wish I had said it this way.
The same technique that athletic trainers use. I'm a firm believer in that. Absolutely. That's the only thing that got me through the fear thing. It is creating the image in my mind, hearing my voice, what I would say. If people that see me speaking around the country would never know I was the child that would cry and had to get in front of the classroom.
How many of you have business cards printed up? A lot of you, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so the first basic rule of sales, okay, is people have got to like you and they have to trust you, okay? The worst thing that anyone could ever do is, like, if you're at a networking event, it's just coming up blindly and just handing them a business card. I guarantee you it's going right in the wastebasket, all right? You've not established any kind of trust, any kind of respect. You've not made a connection with the person. The idea is really shake their hand firmly, look them in the eye, and tell them what you have to tell them, what you have to offer, and see if there's a connection there.
find a way that you can be of help to them.
Yes.
That's the huge thing. Ask them, say, what is it you're looking for, or help me to understand who your ideal client is, because I may know somebody like that. And I always point and I go, because behind me is a big network, so I'd like to help you. So it's just that visual of this to this, and people are like, oh. So, and it may be that you're the perfect fit for somebody, that you've just talked to somebody and they're looking for that guy or that gal. And it's a wonderful feeling when you can say, you know what, somebody told me this morning their HVAC was broken, or they need a roofer, or they need IT professionalism, or they need training. And you're now that connector. Your value, your social value has gone up here, even though you've only been in business for 6 to 9 months, because they look at you and they go, this is an incredible person. He or she already brought people together.
Any other question?
Yeah, I have one. Let's say like I'm trying to get into trying to sell my product, I'm trying to go into a college or something, or you meet somebody, or you try to meet somebody that's a merchandiser for a certain company, but because you're starting out, they don't know your name or anything, and you're calling, but you're getting their secretary or whoever, and they still just giving you a line, well, I'll leave a message for them for you to call, and how would you get around that?
You know what I have done is my technique is I send greeting cards. So I would send one to the secretary, and then I probably would, if it's a place I really truly want to get into, I'd probably drop something off with the secretary and say, thank you, you've been so patient with me taking my calls. If it's possible, I would really like to get on Mrs. Jones' schedule. Is there any way possible? And maybe even drop off like a little candy bar. Not bribing, but just something. Yeah, but you gotta get through that gatekeeper, so then she's gonna tell Mrs. Jones or Mr. Jones that you want that appointment. But the greeting card, everybody opens up personal mail. And they will open that up, and it's a polite request. You're not selling, but you're just like, if I could only have 10 minutes of your time, I would be truly appreciated. I'm new to this industry, I'm new to this community. Would you be willing to meet with me? And then it's very respectful. I would say 90% open rate, right?
So I'm gonna give you the steroids version of this.
Okay.
This happened, honestly, it's happened to me 2 weeks ago. I got a package in the mail, okay, it's personally delivered to me, right? I open it up and it's a $120 tablet, brand new.
Wow.
Unsealed. And it was a really nice letter, and they explained, what they did, and that, they'd like to have the opportunity to have a discussion. Rarely ever do I would ever return a phone call. I almost felt compelled. But if you were going to do something like that, you could go through LinkedIn. You'd really have to hone in on who your ideal client would be and how desperately you wanted to get to the door. That would be a very bold move, and it might be a little expensive in the upfront side, but it could be a pretty lucrative return, because I guarantee you're going to be able to have a conversation.
Well, you can put your customized wear in there that's kind of like if you know what school they go to, or something that's relating to the person instead of the tablet. Because he's an IT person, they send him IT stuff.
Yeah.
Can I jump in that real quick?
Yeah.
Very quickly, because I have another question
Okay.
from another person.
Where, caller ID and cell phones have really, in some ways they've hurt the ability to sell, right? It's really easy to screen calls, we all do it. But I think technology has helped, and Martin just touched on it. I cannot tell you the CEOs of companies who will respond to a well-crafted direct message in LinkedIn. You never get through trying to call traditionally, right? But it's got to be well-crafted. Don't be salesy. Don't cut you. But I've had so much success with that I would have taken me forever to get past the gatekeeper. But there's this direct access now, right, through so many social channels. And especially if it's somebody who's a real influencer, even just commenting on their stuff, right? Because everybody loves the pat on the back, and then all of a sudden you create that back and forth. So there are other ways around it, even than going through that.
Before I take this gentleman's question, if you're doing business with the government and thinking about it, do not send.
Yes.
tablet. Not send the tablet. The card is okay, not the tablet, yes.
Actually, I did have a question. I was going to tag on to that. You kind of hit on it. I do a lot of research on individuals I want to get in touch with. So I use LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, whatever, and find where that individual will be, and just happen to be there, right? So if there are certain charities you're involved with, we have a connection that way, they care about something. You just find out what's important to them, and if you find a way to be there, and you don't sell them, but find a way to introduce yourself, you have to take it from there.
I agree. I used to use it. Absolutely.
It's fine line you walk.
I'm sorry.
Hey, listen, it's information, right?
It's out there.
They made it available, I just happened to use it.
My hat goes on.
Provide stalker and provide somebody that you know that could be there so they can walk them over and shake hands.
Yeah.
Another question. Like I said, I was a shameless marketer. Wasn't I, Steve?
So I'm having a difficult time changing out of my corporate relationship mentality, because when I was in corporate America, you know, I spent a lot of time with my clients. But now that I'm in entrepreneurial type relationships, I can't help but to always want to save and help everybody. And then what happens is I feel like when I walk out of a room, I'm like Pied Piper, everybody's following me, but nobody's ready to pay me. Right? So at what point in time you just go, well, look, I want to help you, but you really need to know, you know, how do I get out of that mentality? Because I like with your strategic, you know.
Well, I can tell you what I was doing, and I didn't realize because I was doing it wrong. Because I used to be the fixer that was brought into corporate, so they do mergers, acquisitions, or strategy, and that mentality of having been in that world was I would just blah everything because it was corporate. I was the strategist. Being an entrepreneur, you got to be careful that you have to intrigue them enough and show them how you can provide value, but you can't give it all away.
Yeah.
I was giving way too much away the first year. I actually had, I couldn't believe it, I was so naive. I had we're doing true confessions, right? I had a person I gave her this elaborate proposal because she told me she was ready to hire me. I took that without a contract, laid it all out, spent probably 5 hours doing the thing when I first started. She took it and handed it to her finance person, and the finance person, who should have been doing all these things for her, said, oh, well, this is a great plan. I'll just do all of this for you. You don't need to hire a husband. I was like, smoke. Seriously. So that was my snack I had to learn. So just, I would say, to ask yourself, are you showing them the whole recipe and how to cook it? Or are you just showing them the ingredients that need to go into it? Because most of us do it. Would you all add that?
Yeah, so there are 3 parts that I qualify on before I ever get into my solution. And as Elizabeth said, you've got to show enough, right? There's got to be enough credibility that they believe there's something behind it. But the 3 things that I'm looking for every time before I get into building big proposals and programs or whatever is, first is what we've all talked about, which is they've got to have pain that I can solve, right? So I've had to have asked the questions. By the way, here's a great note. Nobody said this, I don't think yet. The best skill you can learn to be good at sales is to learn to ask good questions and then listen.
And then listen.
So,
Let me frame what we're about to do, because we have about 10 minutes where I need to wrap up. So,
Okay.
Chad, as a part of what you're saying,
Sure.
think of, keep going down that road.
All right.
Keep pointing to one wrap with.
Great.
I've got 3 minutes.
Great. So here's what I would say. So let me get the 3 qualification points, and then I'll build on that. So first one is you've got to find pain. Next one is you've got to determine that they've got the money to spend, right? Which means asking more questions and qualifying. And then the third is that they can make a decision, that they're a decision maker, or that you understand who all the decision makers are. So until I've got those 3 things, I'm not spending time putting together demos and proposals and everything, because I'm going to tailor my demo or proposal or whatever to what I've learned in that initial conversation about that. So those 3 things are important to me. And if they're not willing to give you that information, then that's a good sign that they're looking for free consulting, right? They want all the free help they can get, and then they'll either just try to do it on their own, or they'll take all that you outlined for them and give it to somebody else who will then do it, right? So that's that. And tying that in, I would say, one of my sort of takeaways I want everybody to understand is, however wonderful you think your product or service is, nobody really cares. Except nobody cares like you, for sure, right? And maybe your significant other. But what they do care about is themselves. And so what we need to do as we learn to qualify and work through who our clients are is learn to figure out what is it that they really need. What is it we've said their pain. And by the way, pain could be something negative. It could also be aspirational, right? So if you're selling something that people want because they can retire sooner, that could still be pain. It's simply the gap between where they are and where they want to be. We call that pain in my world. And so focusing on that and realizing that the more I spend focused on my prospect and what their needs are, that's going to do far better for me than talking about how great my product is, or how many features and benefits I've got, right? How many awards I've won, or whatever. Nobody really cares about that. But they care about themselves, and if you can find a way to connect and figure out how to make their life better, now we've got an opportunity to sell.
Another, just a teaser too, if they say they want to pick your brain,
Yes.
run. That's right. And also, don't ever say it to anybody, because picking your brain means you don't want to pay anybody or something. It's a rude term.
So Mike, why don't you start to wrap up about
Okay.
3 minutes of key points that you want to.
So I wrote down 3 ideas, and one of them was always keep the focus on the customer. So Chad covered that completely. So for me, we kind of talked about them already. You know, trial close, asking for the sale. You're not going to get the sale unless you ask. Worst they can do is say no. Trial closing, though, gets them saying yes early, and they get used to saying yes. So you want them agreeing with you. You want them saying yes. If I solve this, can we do business together? Can we continue this conversation if I solve this? Ask for referrals, because it's, my opinion, it's your best prospecting tool available is a happy customer. And then we didn't talk about how you present your solution at all, but one of the things that we get asked a lot, I get asked a lot, is to mail the proposal to them, and I would absolutely refuse. I will not mail a proposal to anyone. Email, send it to me in email. No, I won't. You need to sit down and explain it. And it goes a little bit to the question, one of Chad's questions was, are you the decision maker? Because if you're not the decision maker, I'm not presenting it to you. I'm going to, that's part of that, and I say that up front in our first meeting. Who are the decision makers? Because when we present the proposal, that's who we're presenting to. Otherwise, I'm wasting my time, because that's going on a pile, or that's going to their current IT company and let them, bid against it. I'm not playing that game. So get to the decision maker as well.
Thank you, Doña. So, when I was asked to provide like 2 takeaways with Rob and them, I wanted to talk to more than the entrepreneurial people. Okay, I looked at some of the key things that helped me grow my business successfully in a major way. One was called process mapping. Okay, what I did is I process mapped all the activities I did in 1 week. Okay, I put the highly valuable activities and gave them green. Okay, I put the other kind of valuable activities and put a price tag with it as a blue. And I would just come up with all these different colors. So making coffee is like very low level. Filing is extremely low level. Identify all those activities that you're doing and put a color on and a dollar value. Okay, and then what I want you to start doing is start with the lowest things possible, like taking out the garbage, making coffee, filing. And if you get to a point where you can hire someone on your team to do those things for you, to free your time up, to do other things, to focus on the highly valuable things that are really important, that's where you're going to be more successful and give yourself more time back to do those highly valuable activities. Okay? The next thing, to that is hiring the right people. All right? And so there's a book called The Ideal Team Player. And it's an excellent book, and it's based on a very simple premise. The premise is that you want to hire people that are hungry, humble, and smart. All right? When you interview them, have someone else in the room that can be there and see if they can identify what these traits are. Because this is kind of an interesting way it works out. So if somebody's smart and hungry, but they're not humble, they're going to steamroll over everybody. You know what? They're going to do anything to get a win. They'll, whatever it takes to get the win. They'll step on toes. Whatever it takes. They could be smart and humble, but not hungry. And this is what we call, the likable, slackers in the room, right? They're not hungry. Everybody likes them, but they're not getting the job done. You've got to have all 3 of those traits working together, and that's where you're going to find somebody that's really going to be the ideal fit.
In the South, the person that's not driven, we call it the dog doesn't hunt. It sits on the porch. into my business in the Red Hawk, it was all about strategic planning and business development. And what happened about, actually it's been over about a year now. Last summer, I had several people repeatedly keep asking me, so Red Hawk provides growth network, well, they didn't call it growth networking, professional networking training, right? And I kept correcting him, going, no, it's strategic. I'm like, can't you see the brochure? And I was not listening. So when somebody asks you over and over, it's, whether you call it the universe or God or whatever you feel this is, you need to listen. So, I mean, I'm serious. I had 20 different people till finally a woman said it to me in terms that it got through to me that day. And she goes, so can I pay you to teach me to professionally network? And it was, and I remember it was like time slowed down. It's a true story. And I said, yes, you can pay me. So, and one of my other clients, he has a very successful, I won't say it because in your favorite he has a very successful this business, and he realized that he was the dominant player in the marketplace, and that that's trailing down. So together we created another business that was in tandem. So it's a combined business that he offers that goes parallel lanes for his clients. And it's a perfect fit. So be open to that. And a lot of people aren't. They start a business and they're like, we only sell cookies, you know, or we only do IT. But people, your customers will ask you, like that'd be silly, they might come to you and say, so you don't do, will you do the maintenance? I'm like, no, we're only IT, right? Listen to what your customer's asking, because they may be telling you what you're supposed to be doing more than you know.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Well, we want to stay on time. I want to thank the panel for, first of all, donating the time, sharing tremendous tips, thanking the audience for being here. And I'm going to turn the program over to Rod to
Good
close.
questions, everybody.
I need to apologize because I haven't seen my phone since 11 o'clock, and mine was the one that went off. So I guess I found it. In my backpack. This was great. I really appreciate it. Today's been good. Google, you know, I told you so, I told you so, I told you so. It was really good to hear other people say what I've been saying to Score clients and to our attendees at our workshops. And it's really nice to have that reinforcement and practical experience to the panel. So first I want to say congratulations to the panel too, because you were selected from the collaborative group as people to get in these seats. So I think that's kind of an honor for some of the organizations, PCC, ODU, Percolator Score. We found and asked for you, and thank you for accepting it. So smile, because we're done.
Nice. Thank you, Doña.
Doña, you did a great job.
Hey, Rod, I was asked by one of your people to make an announcement. Reminder, you already mentioned it.